Welcome to the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. In this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. We are here breaking down every single news story that you need to know, including Bill Belichick's new hottie 24-year-old girlfriend, the Celtics becoming the world champions, and then all the drama that is the WNBA of today. Bada boom, man, the people in the room. How you doing, Grant?
I'm fired up, Tanner. I'm fired up for this episode. We spend a lot of months talking numbers and data analysis, going over the betting odds. This is none of that. This is the back page news. This is the Ashley Madison of the sports world. This is TMZ. This is Shade Room. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. We're probably going to do this for the next couple weeks at least until we start getting closer to football. I mean, we've been just talking about, hey, if Jason Tatum doesn't win a championship, who's better, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, that's all we talked about. Is Luka that guy? And honestly, we all knew the answer. It was the Celtics were winning a championship. So now we can actually talk about some really fun stuff like Bill Belichick. But before we do that, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, like, share, do it all. Take this thing to the moon. Football season's going to be a movie. That's a new statement. Football season about to be a movie at Ride the Line. So make sure you subscribe and let's take this thing to the freaking moon. Before we talk about Bill Belichick, though, which is probably gonna be the majority of the show, I want to talk about the Celtics winning a world championship. Grant, I don't think believes it's a world championship. I believe it's a world championship. I'm not totally sure on his stance, but Grant, why don't you break this down?
Yeah, so this is a conversation that was inspired, I believe, 2 years ago. I believe it was 2 years ago by an American sprinter named Noah Lyles, who's currently the favorite to win the gold medal in the 100 and 200 at the Olympics. And after he won a gold medal at the World Championships, he basically said that in his interview that it makes him mad when NFL teams or NBA teams win the finals, the Super Bowl, and they call themselves champions of the world. And, I think it was a little bit of a self-ego boost because he literally just did win the world championships. So I think he was basically saying that I have actually competed against the best athletes in the world on a global stage. You're just competing against athletes from one country, or if we include the Toronto Raptors from two countries. So the Boston Celtics, where we're going with this, the Boston Celtics put out a Twitter post, call themselves champions of the world. They got a little community note from Twitter, said, you're not world champions, you're just, USA champions, you're just North America champions. And it kind of relitigated this whole discussion here. So, I'll give you my opinion, but are they world champions or not?
Yes, 100%, because it's the biggest league in the world and it encompasses people from all around the world. And people care about it more than any other basketball league in the world, I would say. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, they got to be the world champions. You couldn't do the champion of the Euro League versus champion of the NBA. It wouldn't even be a competition. It should just be the NBA is the pinnacle of basketball. The NFL is the pinnacle of football. Baseball, MLB is the pinnacle of baseball. There you go. World champions.
So I agree with everything you said, except for the world champion title. And the reason I say that is I think you have to compete in an international competition to be the champion of the world. Would the NBA team win 99.9% of the time over the EuroLeague champion? Probably. Would they be the favorite? Absolutely. Are the best players there? Sure. But I don't think you've actually done it until you do it. I don't know. I don't really know. I have another way to say it. Like, I think it has to be an international competition to be the international champion.
But when you look at all like the NBA rejects, like the guys that can't make it in the NBA, where they go play? Europe.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, the LeBron, D Wade, Carmelo, who else was on that team? You know the team that I'm talking about. They went to the Olympics and they lost. So we have seen it before. We have seen these teams be upset before. And then, of course, there was the whole Redeem team where it's LeBron and Kobe and D-Wade, and they go out there win the gold medal. But even in that gold medal game against Spain, it was still a pretty close game. So I think there is some merit to the conversation that you have to go win it. But like I said, I would still pick the NBA team. I would still pick the NFL team, especially. I don't think there's any doubts about that.
Yeah. All right. Before we transition here, I just want to say that Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic are both disgraces to the game of basketball, the entire city of Dallas, and the entire Mavericks organization. They were so bad. And I know we're a few days removed from this. They were horrendous. Luka did as much as he could. Kyrie, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, Kyrie should be ashamed of himself. Luka's intensity was so low in the game 5. I knew after the first 6 to 8 minutes of the first quarter, they were going to lose.
Yeah. They had nothing. at all. And Kyrie didn't make a shot in Boston, but Luka, I mean, he can only do so much. It was like we said, like he got slapped in the face. Like there's only so much he can do for this team. He knows he can't overcome this adversity. He pulled out when they got back to Dallas. Like all the fans were there waving, and he just like pulled out, said, "See you guys later." Not talking to anybody.
Yeah. So, question, Tanner. I'm
Yeah,
sure as an avid Celtics supporter, a New England native, I don't want to criticize a man for how he celebrates, but Jason Tatum, it's like he had a list of celebrities that he
yeah.
wanted to mimic and emulate, and it was just the most unorganic, unauthentic, 24 to 48-hour stretch I've ever seen. Again, I'm not telling him how to celebrate, but I think it was very obvious he was trying to create his own moment, if not relive the moments of other celebrities. And it was just so gross, to be
All right.
completely honest. It was
Well,
gross.
the Kevin Garnett, anything is possible.
That was,
His was like, we did it. Like
we did it.
First of all, you sound very soft saying we did it, right? Like
Yeah.
we did it. Like we did. You should have done it. You were the favorite. You
Yeah.
dominated. This shouldn't be a surprise. Like I would have redone. I would just probably again in the moment you don't know, but I would have been like, yeah, Kevin Garnett. In the words of Kevin Garnett, anything is possible. Like do that. Just like give him the shout out there. And then he had obviously the one at the party after where he's like, whatever who is that? It's Kanye. Not
The
Kanye.
Kanye, they asked
Yeah.
us what would have happened if we never won. I guess we'll
I
never
guess we'll
know.
never know. That's so overused. Like everyone, I think didn't Mahomes do that this year?
I think he did. I think he
Yeah,
did.
Mahomes did that too. So like, I don't want to fault him. Well, there was one more I thought.
There were like 4 or 5. Like
Yeah.
it's literally like he had a check sheet and he was just trying to redo them all.
The best thing from the Celtics celebration was Deuce and him. Like that was awesome. Deuce says, "Hey, you're the best in the world." After he came out and said, "Like, yeah, damn right I am." Like that was cool.
Apparently, Deuce
Over.
doesn't know much about basketball.
Well, Tatum was like minus 200 by the end of that game to be the MVP. Like sportsbooks wanted you to hammer Tatum when he was plus
Oh,
money
I
there.
was happy. Well, I shouldn't say I was happy he lost because I'm not happy he
I
lost.
wanted
But
Brown.
I thought Jaylen Brown deserved it more, so I'm glad Jaylen Brown won.
Well, everyone was acting like Brown didn't play well in the closeout game. He played well. It wasn't like
Mhm.
Tatum was just ball hogging the entire time, but Brown played well. So it's good that Brown won. I like Jason Tatum. I'm a Jason Tatum guy. We got to get a little better celebration for next year. And I'm excited to see what he does at the parade. The parade is should be fun.
So I saw this on Twitter the other day because you work in sports media, obviously, just like I do. I know you've seen the headlines, the conversations about is this an all-time Celtics team? And there have been some people saying yes because of what they've done. When you consider the fact they won over 80 total games, regular and postseason, they only lost three times in the whole postseason. Once to Miami, once to Cleveland, once to Dallas. But then you've got some people say, okay, well, are they better than the Denver Nuggets from last year? I don't know what you think about that. I think Denver was better. But the one I found especially interesting was, are they better than the 2019 Toronto Raptors? And just to go head for head, it's Drew Holiday versus Kyle Lowry. It's Jason Tatum versus Kawhi Leonard. And then obviously with the rest of the Celtics, you've got Derek White, Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, and the rest of the Raptors. Who was it? It was Marc Gasol. It was Pascal Siakam. And who was the 2 guard on that team? Why am I blanking? I don't know, but I know they had Norman Powell, Fred VanVleet, and then Serge Ibaka off the bench as well. So I thought that
Celtics
was
are
actually
better.
an interesting discussion.
I like the Celtics over that team. I think the Celtics are a 4.5 point favorite over that team.
I just thought it was interesting because at that moment, Kawhi was better than Tatum is right now. Jaylen Brown, if you're Boston, you've probably got the second and third best player with Tatum and Brown. But then I think you trust the Raptors' clutch ability a little bit more, and they're also a little bit deeper off the bench, even though Boston has the better top 6. I just thought it was a very interesting discussion.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, the 2008 Celtics team would have murdered this team because they had some attitude. This team had no attitude. This was like the pretty boy Celtics that beat everybody up. I think the one thing we learned though about this Celtics team is that Joe Mazzulla is he's going to be one of the most legitimate head coaches in the NBA for a long time.
Absolutely. And he's Tanner. You gave me some unnecessary criticism earlier. You threw some shade my direction for saying that I thought Joe Mazzulla was a bad coach. I thought Joe Mazzulla was a bad coach last year. I thought he was outstanding the whole regular season. And what he had to do, it was prove himself in the playoffs, and he absolutely did that. I think Joe Mazzulla's top 4, top 5 coach in the NBA going into next season.
I keep receipts, Grant. Don't forget that.
Okay, well, keep a receipt of
I
that.
keep
I'm a
receipt.
Joe Mazzulla guy now. Again, some of the stuff he did was so innovative. And I know you don't watch soccer, but I don't know if you saw this. The manager for Manchester City, Pep Guardiola, Man City's the best team in the world right now in soccer. He was courtside at a couple of those Celtics games. Before the season started last year, I know Mazzulla flew over to England, watched them train and everything. And in one of his press conferences after they won the finals, he said, yeah, I drew a lot of my inspiration and my influence from Man City and Pep Guardiola. And when I think about it, some of the ways that Guardiola has innovated and introduced new concepts to soccer, it's a lot like what Joe Mazzulla did, because again, he was putting players in positions that were just very unorthodox. One of them, I know this is more of a lighthearted show, but I guess the one, if we're going to dive into the weeds, I will just for 30 seconds. One thing he did was he would have guards in the strong side dunker spot when Tatum was driving. And what that did basically was you want your center defending the rim, but because you have Drew Holiday standing right next to the rim, well, now Kyrie Irving is effectively playing your center role with Jason Tatum driving. So either Tatum's going to get an easy layup or Dallas is going to send a ton of help, and you've got a wide open 3 from whoever they rotate off of. So it was very cool what he did there, and I thought it was fitting that he drew it from Man City.
The only thing is, though, he's never going to get the credit in the sense of, he had the team that should have won the championship. So that's the only knock on him. I think it's not like he built something from the ground up. He took over a great team. He kept them great.
You know what's interesting to think about as well? Brad Stevens was a really good coach for Boston, and Danny Ainge was a really good GM. If those two stayed in their roles, do they win this championship, or did it take Brad Stevens going upstairs and Joe Mazzulla coming in? Or what about Ime Udoka? What if Ime Udoka was the coach this year?
They've all had Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens all had, obviously Brad Stevens is the current GM, but they all had influence on this team. Like everyone's had a part in this team in some capacity. So even Ime Udoka, like he's had a part. He had a part in this team too, when you think about it. So this is a long time coming. This is years and years of building a team and into a championship, and hopefully a long dynasty run to be the world champions of the world. But speaking of the other champions of the world, we have the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick, former coach of the former champions of the world, New England Patriots. He is now dating a 24-year-old girl. And the story is that it's, let me read the actual TMZ story. Deductive logic author pumped book sparks coach's new romance. So there was basically Bill Belichick sitting on the plane with a girl named Jordan Hudson. If you want to go look her up on Instagram, go do that. She's a attractive 24-year-old lady. And there was a book named Deductive Logic, and they were sitting together on the way back from Boston area to Florida in 2021. So she was in college at the time. It was a textbook. Apparently they started talking about things in the book, and they talked about homework. And then, Bill Belichick, started swooning her. I guess that would be the word. They sparked up a conversation. It led to a picture, exchanged numbers. And then, one thing led to another, and they were dating. So very interesting story here. My first question is, what is Bill Belichick doing in coach? Number one.
Fair. What's your second question?
Well, we'll talk about all the questions I have next, but that's my initial thought is like, what is Bill Belichick? Because like I'm looking at the picture, like Bill Belichick's in coach.
Maybe he thought it was for coaches.
Maybe he did. And he was still like a good, I guess they were on the way down then, pretty bad.
2021, that would have been Brady's second year in Tampa.
When he won the Super Bowl. No, he won his first year. He lost.
Yeah, he won his first year, which was 2020, because that was the COVID year.
Yeah. And then lost in 21 and 22. So that was Mac Jones's second year. That was when Mac really started to decline.
Did you get Mac Jones no, because you had a year of Cam Newton while Brady was in Tampa. So that was Mac Jones's rookie year.
Okay, so that was a good year for Bill Belichick. Like he was still that guy. So anyways, what do we think the situation is? Like first off, let's take it from her perspective. What is in it for Hudson?
I don't know anything about this young woman, so I don't want to throw any assumptions out there. She could have great character and be blind to all of this. Just outwardly, though, I struggle to see what a 24 and a 72-year-old are going to connect over. I do think there is a bit of financial incentive. Again, not to paint her in that light, but just for me as someone on the outside, I find it hard to believe, or not hard to believe, but there's nothing else that jumps to my mind first more than Bill Belichick's got a lot of money, maybe some popularity, maybe she can grasp onto it. I will say, if she was reading a book on logic and that's where the conversation started, I trust Bill Belichick to be interested in logic. He's a defensive, coordinator. Basically, even when he was the head coach, he was still the defensive coordinator. I think he's a logical guy. I believe that part of the story.
Yeah, I believe that's how it sparked their conversation. I also don't know what's in it for her from the perspective of like for her to get so she might get taken care of well for a little bit, right? But like, is she going to be with Bill Belichick for the long haul? Is she going to marry him? Is
Well,
she
I
going to
mean,
get
because they started talking in 2021, 2022, so it's been 2 or 3 years now. You can turn this into if Bill Belichick, when he passes away, which will happen one day, hopefully not any day soon, but maybe you get in the documentary, you get some, social media content, you get a YouTube channel going. You can make a brand out of this.
you got to get a kid. That's how you get it. You got to get a kid. Truthfully, that's how you get that. If you want to be set, you got to get a kid.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong because then you're getting, alimony, you're getting child support off of that. So.
And you're getting in the will for sure. 100%.
Well, it depends on how it ends.
No, you have to for the baby. It's the baby's.
Well, I'm saying she could get more if she's in his good graces.
All right, so that's from her perspective. I don't see much. Like, again, she's pretty. I don't know if like she could go to Miami and get it. Like, I don't know. I don't know what there's a lot of pretty girls out there, right? So I don't know if she's getting like a 24-year-old, 25-year-old who's worth 20, 30, 40 million dollars, whatever Bill Belichick's worth. I don't know. I can't sit here and say that if she is or not. I'm not sure. But it seems like all the stars kind of came down for her to be with Bill Belichick. Now, on the flip side, what's in it for Bill Belichick?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, is it not? He's
But
been up in
also,
the bitter cold of New England for the last 20 years. He finally gets to go back to his home in Florida. He's no longer with the woman he was with for, I think it was 16 years. He wants a little rebound, and he ended up just walking into a fling with an attractive 24-year-old cheerleader. I think it's pretty obvious what's in it for Bill Belichick.
you have to deal with her too. You know what I'm saying? Like,
But
Bill Belichick's not
you just send her to the mall. Here's a few $1,000s. Go crazy.
he's not going to. I can't imagine he's going to the clubs with her.
No way. He's not leaving. He's probably not leaving the house aside to go on a boat or go golfing or something.
She might not be a club person either. Like, we got to factor that in. Like, she's a New England girl. She might just like the beach.
I can't. Well, what beaches are there in New England? Like Rehoboth?
There's tons
Rehoboth?
of beaches in New because they met in like she's had a place in Nantucket, or her family does or whatever, because Bill Belichick was sneaking out of her house that morning. That was
New
her.
England. Wait, that was her family house?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was her family house or not.
Can you imagine bringing? Can you imagine your daughter says, "Hey, I'm bringing home my new boyfriend to dinner tonight. I hope that's okay." And she shows up with Bill Belichick.
That'd be crazy. That'd be awesome. But then there's like, so then you have that. What do you think Steven Belichick thinks of this?
Because she's like 10 years younger than he is, right?
Yeah, he's probably mid-30s. He's the DC at, I think, Washington now, right? Yeah, so he's doing well. But what do you think he thinks of this?
And doesn't Belichick have a daughter who's a national champion in lacrosse or something?
She's like a coach at She was a coach at Wesleyan. Like, I think she coached lacrosse at Wesleyan.
Yeah. I don't know. That's weird. That is a weird spot to be in. I don't have siblings and I don't have kids, so I don't have a direct comparison, but it's got to be a little awkward.
It's pretty cool. Like, good for Bill Belichick. Good. I think it's good for him. He needs something besides football because now he doesn't have football.
Yeah, and he does need to. He's been so grumpy for so long. Hopefully, this makes him a little bit lighter. And when he does return to football, because I do think he's going to return, I think he wants the all-time wins record for coaches. But he's got to lighten up a little bit. It's a different era than the one he came up in. And like Mike Krzyzewski at Duke, he's still a little rough around the edges, but he was a pure a-hole 20 years ago, and he's a lot nicer of a guy now. And that part of that was just adapting to the
Yeah.
times. Maybe
He was
this
so
same
much
thing's gonna happen.
Yeah, he was so much softer by the end of his career. I think you have to adapt like that, you know? Like
Yeah.
that's he be like Bill Belichick. I don't know if he ever did that. And especially it's professional football, so you're gonna get guys that aren't buying in and all that. Because I think like with the Patriot way, like Tom Brady kind of kept it. Like Tom Brady is the reason the Patriots are so good because Bill Belichick could not treat him like he was the greatest quarterback of all time, and he accepted it, and the team bought in because of it. So you
Mhm.
can't like that's the reason ultimately. Like Bill Belichick's a great coach, but Tom Brady didn't say F this. He said, we're all here to win. Like I'm gonna buy into Bill treating me like I'm scum and everyone else is gonna follow because if they see me buying in, everyone's gonna buy in. So I think that's why the Patriots dynasty was so good.
And you know what? To take this back to what we were talking about with the Celtics and the Mavericks with Luka, if Luka, I'm not saying Luka has a huge ego because I really don't know if he does or not, but we saw the level of buy-in he had in game 4 when they won by 40 or 38 points, whatever the final score was. Imagine if Jason Kidd was tearing him a new one every day and you got that version of Luka every game. The Mavericks would have won 70 games this year. They would have swept the Celtics. So great coach, great player. But like you said, it's about the player allowing himself to be coached in that manner. That's where the dynasty came from.
Yeah, and they got to want to win. The player like Tom Brady loved winning. I can't sit here and say Luka Doncic loved winning after what we saw in the NBA Finals. I can't
No,
say he left it out on
you
the floor.
can't. I mean, he's smoking hookah in the offseason. He comes
Yeah.
in, even when he's quote unquote in shape, he's as
He's
far
not.
as the standard of being the best athletes in the world, he's out of shape. He's chubby. Like I understand that he's not actually chubby, but when you're supposed to be 4 to 5% body fat and you're 11 or 12, that's overweight.
Yeah, like you look at Nikola Jokic, with his like he was more excited to win his horse race in Serbia than he was to win the NBA Finals. It was
Yeah.
wild. So I don't think these guys I think they love the paycheck. And you know what? That's fine because it's just a job for them. In the end of the day, like basketball is a job for Luka. It's no different than us getting on doing this podcast right now in terms of it being a job.
Yeah, and it does show the difference between great players and actual greatness. Like
Yeah.
if we compare just the demeanors and the mannerisms and the actions of Luka and Jokic to LeBron and Steph and KD, even though Luka and Jokic are probably better right now at this point in their careers than those other three guys, I trust them to have longer careers. They've given more to the game as far as not just the work they've put in. Like even LeBron at 40 years old, he's a workout warrior. He gets up at 4 a.m., goes to the gym, works out 3 times a day. When he's not working out, he's taking a nap so that he can refuel for his next workout. But it's also going to these off-court events, treating the All-Star game seriously. I know the All-Star game has declined in recent years, but I don't think that's a LeBron, a Durant, a Steph thing. I think it's sort of the new age of players that's happened because of.
Yeah, you need to love winning. Like Tom Brady loved winning. Michael Jordan loved winning. LeBron loved winning. Like it was more that it wasn't just a job. Like where you look at Luka and Jokic, like they're doing this to get a paycheck. They obviously want to win. Like, I'm not saying you go out there, you
And
want
I'm
to
sure
win.
they do like basketball.
Yeah, but do they love it? And do they love win? I think that's the thing. Like, do you hate to lose? Where Tom Brady hated to lose. Like everything about that was going on. We're winning football games. Like that's our ultimate goal here. Where he didn't care about the money as much. It wasn't, I mean, he was obviously getting compensated well, but he was taking cuts to win, right? Like that's what we don't really see as much with today's athlete.
There's a guy that I used to run track against back in high school. He broke a bunch of records for fastest high schooler ever. He's going to be at the Olympic trials in a couple of weeks. His name's Drew Hunter. He mostly ran the mile. He was one of however many guys, like less than 10, to run sub 4 minutes in the mile in high school. He's just ridiculously fast. But he was, obviously he had great genetics. His dad went to the Olympic trials. His mom's a national record holder, but he didn't start off great in high school. Like you could see him consistently progressing. It's not like he came in and dominated from day one, but as he got to his sophomore, junior years, he was getting this national attention. He was pulling off a lot of upsets. And then he just had this huge streak where he did not lose. And one of my friends happens to be very good friends with him. And so I just kind of asked him what his secret was. And he said if Drew lost a race, he didn't value himself the same as a man. He said it was emasculating, it was disgraceful. Like, he thought less of himself if he allowed someone else to get the better of him. And that's a psychopathic level to hold yourself to, and to think you're a failure if you're the second best in the whole country. But at the same time, when you're talking about this level of greatness, and especially with the Jokic and the Luka, who not only have the gifts, but they have the ability, you've seen them do it. If they don't hold themselves to that standard, again, that's what separates them from really being in that all-time historical great conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's an interesting conversation, one we can carry on in the show for weeks to come, looking at some of these athletes heading into football season. But we got to talk about the W, because the W is the most toxic thing going on in sports right now. It's very fun to talk about. First thing, Grant, I know you want to talk about the rematch between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, which we're going to see many, many times, and probably going to fill it with Angel Reese taking cheap shots at Caitlin Clark. But once Cameron Brink tore her ACL and it's no longer on the 3-on-3, RIP to her ACL. I hope she gets better soon, but she's not going to play on the 3-on-3 team for the United States of America. And everyone on Twitter, apparently, I'm not deep into the weeds of WNBA Twitter, but everyone on Twitter was saying that, Caitlin Clark needs to replace her. And then the WNBA purists came out and they were like, no, we need a big on the team. What are you talking about? Caitlin Clark, she's not a big. And then it was like, now you can really see who watches WNBA versus who doesn't watch WNBA. And they're just going at it. And it was a little wild to me to see that the WNBA purist, you want to grow the sport, guys, like, don't jump down the people's throat that just started watching.
Well, I don't disagree. That's actually been a big thing with soccer, because as soccer has kind of reached America, even though it's not fully permeated America, it's like this whole thing of, don't try to take our sport now. You don't know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. Like, I get that. But at the same time, all of these conversations happening online, even if they are a little dismissive, it's still good for the sport. I know the WNBA is projected to lose $50 million this year, but I also saw that every single TV company or network that's carried a game has set viewership records as far as average eyes, peak viewers, average time watching the game, all this stuff. So I think it is still part of the momentum that is building for the WNBA.
And it's Caitlin Clark. Like, can we just, like, everyone, like, that's my biggest problem. The people that disagree with that, it's Caitlin Clark that has built this. And people might be staying for Angel Reese. That's fine. But Caitlin Clark's the one that's built it.
So I will say, the Angel Reese, I've given this some thought, and I think I might owe Angel Reese a little more credit than I previously did. Maybe not necessarily because of what she has done on the court. And again, like, going back to the college days, people are watching that game because Caitlin Clark was playing, but the storyline did heavily involve Angel Reese. She was the villain in the timeline. So maybe it's not because she is who she is, but it's because she has that role in the story, and because she has played it so well. I mean, she has been a very good villain in the story so far. I actually do think that I underestimated her role. I think maybe she does deserve a little bit more credit than we gave her.
She's part of the book for sure. Like, she's the adversary in the book. Like, it's like, I would say it's like Michael Jordan to Isaiah Thomas, right? Like, kind of, it's like, it's the big rivalry, but at the same time too, who you watching for? You're watching for Jordan. You're not watching for Isaiah Thomas.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But no good movie is complete without, what do they call it? An antagonist.
No, yeah, but there's the difference is, I'm not turning on a Chicago Sky game to watch Angel Reese. If she's playing Caitlin Clark, I'll watch it. I'm turning on the Indiana Pacers game, whoever they're playing, because I want to see Caitlin Clark. Which, honestly, Caitlin Clark turns the ball over a hell of a lot to be the face of the league. Honestly, too many turnovers for her, too many missed assignments, too many stupid shots. So I don't want to sit here and say like she's killing it. Like, yeah, she's putting up big numbers, but I think that's also because, I don't know, she's shooting the ball all the time, and she's like, some nights she's really aggressive. Other nights she doesn't look like she wants to be there. Sorry, not a WNBA analyst, but
So there's only 12 teams in the WNBA. 8 of them do make the playoffs. The Indiana Fever started the year as one of the worst teams in the league. Them and the Washington Mystics. They're on a little bit of a hot streak. They won 3 straight games. They've won. What is this? They've won 5 of their last 7. They're now up to 8th place in the standings. So as it stands, they would be in the playoffs. They're a half game lead over the Chicago Sky, who are 9th, by the way. So it could end up being the situation where one of Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese gets to make the playoffs. But if the Fever find their way into the playoffs, then, I mean, WNBA playoff time could actually be a pretty big event.
The Fever were also picked like 4th or 5th in the league, I think, this year.
You mean as far as like, title favorites?
Yeah, title favorites, just because of her. Do we have make the play? Oh, we have make the playoff odds. Love that. Indiana Fever.
They were. I know that they were. I'm pretty sure they were 5th. But I wrote an article about this. Let me go see if I can pull it up right now.
I think they were 5th. Yeah, Indiana Fever to make the playoffs right now, currently minus 113 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Chicago Sky is plus 220 to make the playoffs.
Okay, I want to. Okay, let me see here. I know I wrote an article about the Indiana Fever. She was 3rd in preseason MVP odds at plus 1,000. Ajay Wilson was 1st. Breanna Stewart was 2nd. She had the most money bet on her to be the MVP. I know I wrote something. I can't find it. I know I wrote something about how the actual Fever were projected to do, because the Indiana Fever have been historically bad over the last decade or so. And so it was crazy that they were 5th in title odds. But I mean, they're on the upswing. You never know. Maybe they go on a run at the end of the season.
You never know. That's the truth. You never know. But one thing that on this podcast, you're going to get the best information across everything: the drama, the tea, the WNBA. What?
I got it.
I was having a hell of an outro there.
Yeah, but I didn't want you to do the outro. That's why I stopped you. Before the year started, sorry, Fever 5th in title odds. They were at plus 2,300. They finished 10th in a 12-team league the year before that. And they had won an average of, where is it?
4 games.
I lost it. I lost my place. They won an average of like 6 games per season, something really low like that.
If you bet on the Fever to win the WNBA, that could have been one of the biggest donations in the history of donations, because there's only 3 good teams in the WNBA. It's the Liberty, the Sun, and the Aces. Only 3 good teams.
Can you imagine?
Storm, maybe you're good. I don't know.
Did you see the Cole Kmet Boston Celtics parlay?
No. Oh yeah, that was stupid. They said anytime touchdown with Boston Celtics. Yeah. Like, what are they parlaying at anytime touchdown with the Boston Celtics?
Well, I was just thinking, imagine an Indiana Fever WNBA champions Bronny James first overall pick parlay.
Never know. Bronny could go. We'll talk about Bronny next time, but Bronny could go pretty high, right?
He might be a lottery pick now. I think it's a ploy to try to land LeBron.
Rich Paul is just out here putting some wild quotes out too, by the way. We haven't, he's putting some crazy stuff out. LeBron will get drafted by the Lakers, and LeBron has no problem leaving, all this stuff. So
LeBron better leave.
Well, we'll see, Grant. We'll talk about that next time, though, because today is done. We'll see you next week on Ride the Line. Grant, take us out of here.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ride the Line. Make sure that you guys have pressed that like button, press that subscribe button, drop some comments. Who you're taking in the Sunday rematch? Caitlin Clark in the Fever, Angel Reese in the Chicago Sky. Tanner and I will catch you all on the next episode of Ride the Line.